Yeah, well, this is really more of a tantrum than it is a trade war. President Trump didn't like this advertisement that the government of Ontario put out, quoting Ronald Reagan as being opposed to tariffs. And so he lashed out at Canada and said, all right, that's it, trade negotiations are off. The reality is they weren't really going anywhere anyway. They're supposed to get underway in the next several weeks or months. They have to review the USMCA agreement that is due to be reviewed by the middle of next year. So President Trump is just trying to push the government of Prime Minister Carney back a little bit, back on its heels. And in the process, what he's done is forced all of us to go listen to old Ronald Reagan speeches and find out that he was actually quite the free trader as opposed to President Trump, who's quite pro-tariff.
I suppose that's one, sure, that's what's happening. But the Reagan Foundation objected to the use of the sound bites in the Canadian ad. And they say they're now exploring legal options because the full context of the late president's comments was that he was actually in talks with Japan and trying to explain why he was imposing tariffs on some Japanese goods.
Yeah, I mean, listen to the radio address from President Reagan yourself, and there's no reasonable reading of that other than it's a takedown of the use of tariffs. President Reagan was trying to use tariffs against Japan in a very sort of measured way, and he was trying to explain that. But the flip side of that, and this is the one that Ontario seized on for its ad, was that I don't want to do this. I think he actually says I'm loath to use tariffs. President Trump loves to use tariffs, and so that's what the Reagan Foundation didn't say that they fabricated anything that President Reagan said. What they did was they made a political ad, the way political ads are made. You take the message that you want people to hear and you splice it together, and that's what it is. But the full reading of the Reagan address is clear, and it stands in direct opposition to what President Trump stands for when it comes to trade and tariffs.
So, Brendan, looking ahead, President Trump and Mark Carney will both be in Asia next week attending ASEAN and APEC summits. Do we get a sense of whether these two gentlemen have any personal chemistry that they might be able to restart unofficial negotiations right there between them?
Yeah, we'll have to wait. I believe Carney is speaking now or soon, and so we'll have to see what he says. I mean, the big discussion next week is going to be between the U.S. and China, and whether they can get some sort of extension on their trade truce that they've got going. That's really what markets are focused on at the moment. Are we going to escalate that U.S.-China trade war or de-escalate the way they have for the past 4 rounds of trade talks? So we'll have to see how that turns out. Secretary Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is meeting with his counterpart in Kuala Lumpur this weekend to set up any sort of agreement that they might reach later in the week, the two leaders, Trump and Xi. So we'll have to see how that shakes out.